Secretary Rubio. But you have shown through your words and your actions what the answer is. And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job, based on what I know.
Well, that's just a flippant statement, Mr.
for.
Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
I didn't ask.
Senator,
question.
please let the Secretary have
I'd be
the floor.
happy to, but then I can respond to his.
Your time's up, Senator, and willfully used, I might add.
Well-
Your remarks do not represent the view of this committee.
Well, Mr.
Secretary, please.
Well, I'd like to. I can't respond to everything he said because much of these are untrue, but I'll go through a few. First of all, I'm actually very proud of the work we've done with USAID. For example, I don't regret cutting $10 million for male circumcisions in Mozambique.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to America First, the channel where we stand up for the Constitution, expose the left's hypocrisy, and defend American values without apology. If you love this country and believe in truth over narrative, hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss a moment of common sense commentary from the real front lines. Today we're diving into an absolutely disgraceful and frankly unhinged outburst from Senator Chris Van Hollen during a Senate hearing where he launched a full-blown personal attack on Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Now, I want you to understand exactly what happened here because it wasn't just political theater. It was a glimpse into the radical left's desperation, their contempt for dissent, and their total abandonment of reason.
Mr. Secretary, you and I served together in Congress for 15 years. We didn't always agree, but I believe we shared some common values. A belief in defending democracy and human rights abroad and honoring the Constitution at home. That's why I voted to confirm you. I believed you would stand up for those principles. You haven't. You've done the opposite. And you used to speak with conviction about the importance of foreign aid as a tool to advance American values and interests. Then you stood by while Elon Musk took a chainsaw to USAID and other assistance programs. That has left a staggering toll. Broken trust with countries, openings for China and other adversaries, and countless preventable deaths of children and others. Take Sudan, for example. The freezing of U.S. humanitarian assistance forced the closure of nearly 80% of the emergency food kitchens there. 2 million famine-affected people were left without access to food. People died because of those actions. Mothers, fathers, and children. Tons of emergency food that could have saved their lives was left rotting in warehouses because you and Elon Musk refused to let USAID do its job. Sudan is a country where, by the administration's own determination, a genocide is unfolding in Darfur. But here's where it goes from cruel to despicable. While cutting off food aid to Sudanese families living through an actual genocide, you're fast-tracking white South Africans for refugee status under a manufactured claim that they are the victims of genocide. You tried to block the admission of individuals who had already been approved to come here as refugees while making bogus claims to justify granting such status to Afrikaners. You've made a mockery of our country's refugee process, turning it into a system of global apartheid where political ideology and race, more than truth or need, matter. And while you've turned away from a genocide in Sudan and invented one in South Africa, you teamed up with President Trump to throw the Ukrainian people under the bus and have been played like a fiddle by Vladimir Putin. Of course, Donald Trump not only said he would end the war in Ukraine on day one, he also said he would end the war in Gaza on day one. And yet last week, you were all running around to Gulf states, giving away very sensitive American AI and chips technology, but doing nothing to end the war in Gaza and get the remaining hostages returned. You know that for 78 days, the Netanyahu government did not allow a scrap of food to enter Gaza to reach over 2 million civilians. 57 children have died from malnutrition so far, and more than 14,000 children are in imminent danger of dying of starvation. As Cindy McCain said last week, and I quote, "Families in Gaza are starving while the food they need is sitting at the border." That is a gross violation of both U.S. and international law. What did you do? Nothing. Not once did you publicly call upon the Netanyahu government to end the blockade. Fortunately, other countries spoke out, and now we see a tiny trickle going in. Where have you focused your energy instead, Mr. Secretary? Well, your first trip as Secretary of State was to El Salvador, not to promote democracy, but to cozy up to President Bukele, who calls himself the world's coolest dictator. The result was a cash for collusion deal to deprive people living in America of their constitutional rights to due process. The Supreme Court, in a 9-0 decision, instructed you to facilitate the return to the United States of Abrego Garcia, who the administration admitted was wrongfully deported to El Salvador. Your response? You've openly flouted judicial orders. When asked whether you have been in touch with El Salvador to return Abrego Garcia, you boasted, quote, "I would never tell you that. And you know who else I would never tell? A judge." Clearly, you don't care about the Fifth Amendment right to due process, and you don't care about the First Amendment either, since you've been very busy snatching students off of college campuses for exercising their right to free speech. You dredged up a relic from the McCarthy era to claim that student protesters posed a threat to the foreign policy of the United States. Give me a break, Mr. Secretary. You know as well as I do this isn't about national security, it's about punishing free speech. And you know that in America, the government doesn't get to use its power to punish speech it doesn't like. Yet in March, you boasted about revoking student visas, saying, and I'm quoting, "We do it every day. Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visa," unquote. Let's look at one of those lunatics, Mr. Secretary, Ms. Ozturk. Her crime was co-authoring an op-ed in her college paper critical of Tufts University's response to the war in Gaza. Your own department found 0 links to terrorism, no anti-Semitic statements, but you still yanked her visa and shipped her off to detention in Louisiana. And the list goes on and on. The federal judge in the case of Mohsen Madawi, who was the Columbia student who was ambushed by federal agents at his citizenship appointment, said, and I quote, this is the judge, "Legal residents not charged with crimes or misconduct are being arrested and threatened with deportation for stating their views on the political issues of the day. Our nation has seen times like this before, especially during the Red Scare and Palmer raids. Like the McCarthy-era witch hunts of the 1950s, your campaign of fear and repression is eating away at foundational values of our democracy. Back then, it took one voice, Attorney Joseph Welch, to cut through the hysteria with the simple question that marked the beginning of the end of that shameful era. He asked Senator McCarthy, have you no sense of decency? And I would ask you the same, Secretary Rubio. You have shown through your words and your actions what the answer is. And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job, based on what I know.
Well, that's
about
just
your
a
record and
flippant
what you
statement,
stand
Mr.
for.
Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
I didn't ask a
Senator,
question.
please let the Secretary have
I'd be
the floor.
happy to, but then I can respond to his.
Your time's up, Senator, and willfully used, I might add.
Well-
Your remarks do not represent the view of this committee.
Well, Mr. Chairman-
Secretary, please.
Well, I'd like to. I can't respond to everything he said because much of these are untrue, but I'll go through a few. First of all, I'm actually very proud of the work we've done with USAID. For example, I don't regret cutting $10 million for male circumcisions in Mozambique. I don't know how that makes us stronger and more prosperous as a nation.
I raised
don't regret
Sudan, Mr.
psychosocial support services.
I
with
raised
USAID.
Sudan, Mr. Secretary,
Can I
not
respond, Mr.
Mozambique.
Chairman, or do I?
Senator, I'd ask you to suspend. You had 7 straight minutes of
I chose
railing
to
on-
use my time that way, Mr. Chairman. That's my right to
Please
use my time
suspend,
that way.
Secretary Rubio.
Well, I can go on. I mean, there's other things here. We spent $227,000 for Big Cat's YouTube channel from USAID. We spent $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the hell that means. So I can go on and on. I got the list here, and there's more. I didn't even bring the whole list. In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come,
Mr.
you're
Chairman,
going to see who you went to
look,
defend.
Senator,
I'm sorry,
please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary
No.
Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated
Senator,
comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You
Secretary
had your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court of the
Senator-
United States because
Well,
he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge in the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy. No judge can tell me how I have to outreach to a foreign partner or what I need to say to them. And if I do reach to that foreign partner and talk to them, I have under no obligation to share that with the judiciary branch. Just like a judge cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister of Russia, they cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister or the president of El Salvador. And if I did negotiate with them, which we have responded to them, and we've told them, we've had communications with the president of El Salvador, I am under no obligation, under our division of powers in this country, and to share with the judicial branch how I conducted diplomacy of the United States. It would actually be counterproductive. If I started sharing with courts, or frankly, with the media, my conversations with foreign leaders and all of their details, no foreign leader would talk to me again, and we would break trust with them. So I have complied with every court order. What I won't comply with is an order to disclose what I'm saying and what we're talking about with a foreign leader, because then they won't talk to me. Diplomacy doesn't work that way. About the student visas, let me say this. I don't deport anybody, and I don't snatch anybody. The State Department does not have officers in the street snatching everybody. What I do is revoke visas, and it's very simple. A visa is not a right. It is a privilege. People apply for student visas to come into the United States and study. And if you tell me that you're coming to the United States to lead campus crusades, to take over libraries and try to burn down buildings and acts of violence, we're not going to give you a visa.
Is that what Ms. Ozturk did?
We're not going to give you a visa.
Is that what she
And
did?
if you do
Come
that,
on, Mr. Secretary.
and every single
You're
one of
just
these
blowing
cases, the
smoke
factors
here
are
now.
different.
Senator,
the bottom line is, if you're
Senator,
coming here
we-
to stir up trouble on our campuses, we will deny you a visa. And if you
Does
have
the
a
First
visa
Amendment
and we find
apply
you,
to
we will
people
revoke
living
it.
in the United
And
States?
we're going to do more. There are more coming. We're going to continue to revoke the visas of people who are here as guests and are disrupting our higher education facilities. People are paying money. These kids pay money to go to school, and they have to walk
Writing
through a
an
bunch of
op-ed
lunatics
to the
who are
Tufts
here on student
newspapers
visas.
disrupting the
Simple
foreign
as
policy
that.
of the United
I want to
States.
do more. I hope we can
That's
find more of these people.
pathetic, Mr.
In fact, the
Secretary.
other day, some guys led a riot. I forgot what university it was, and I asked, please, can you find the arrest records of all the people that were arrested at that riot at that campus? Because if any of them have a visa, we're going to revoke
I
it.
feel so much safer
All right,
when you lock
let's,
up people like Ms. Ozturk, Mr. Secretary.
We've had enough time on the subject. Thank you very much. And
Van Hollen started off by admitting that he used to respect Rubio when they served in Congress together. But now, according to him, Rubio has abandoned values and become some sort of villain in his eyes. Why? Because Secretary Rubio had the backbone to challenge wasteful spending in foreign aid, to stand firm on national security, and to put American interests first. Apparently, to Van Hollen, that's a crime. Let's get into the meat of his accusations. First, he accuses Rubio of allowing children in Sudan to starve because foreign aid was redirected or cut. What he conveniently leaves out is that Rubio cut off aid that was being misused or funneled through corrupt networks. The real issue isn't that America didn't want to help, it's that the old way of doing things wasn't working. Aid was being weaponized, misappropriated, and used to prop up hostile regimes. Rubio simply said enough is enough. That's called leadership. Then Van Hollen stoops even lower. He accuses Rubio of favoring white South African refugees over Sudanese refugees, painting it as some sort of racial conspiracy. This is classic leftist projection. They inject race into every issue to divide Americans and vilify anyone who doesn't bow to their radical agenda. Rubio has made it clear that refugee policy should prioritize those truly at risk, regardless of race, but that it also needs to protect the security and integrity of our nation. That's what the left refuses to acknowledge. And of course, the senator couldn't resist dragging Ukraine and Gaza into the mix. He blamed Rubio for being played by Putin and then turned around and accused him of letting children starve in Gaza. Let's get something straight. It wasn't Rubio who let Hamas embed itself inside civilian infrastructure. It wasn't Rubio who started a war. And it's not Rubio's job to micromanage Israel's defense policies. It's our job to stand by our allies, not cave to terrorist propaganda and media manipulation. Rubio has stood by Israel, as any American leader should. But the part that really takes the cake is when Van Hollen goes full McCarthy-era drama queen and accuses Rubio of staging a campaign of fear and repression by revoking student visas. He brings up student protesters and acts like their rights were trampled just for speaking out. Wrong. These weren't just students protesting peacefully. Many of them were engaged in radical, often violent, disruptions of American campuses, blocking access to buildings, threatening other students, and waving the flags of foreign terrorist organizations. If you're in this country on a student visa and you start engaging in anti-American activity or inciting violence, you should be sent home. Period. Rubio said it best, visas are a privilege, not a right. The U.S. government has every right to revoke a visa if someone is abusing it to disrupt civil order or promote extremism. That's not tyranny. That's common sense. And let's not forget the most important point Rubio made. No judge can tell the executive branch how to conduct foreign policy. That is foundational to our system of government. The judiciary doesn't get to dictate diplomacy. They don't get to demand transcripts of conversations with foreign leaders. That's a line we cannot allow to be crossed because once we do, we destroy the very principle of separation of powers. What Van Hollen did in that hearing wasn't brave. It wasn't noble. It was a petulant, desperate attempt to score political points by smearing a man who refuses to play by the left's rules. Rubio kept his composure, defended his record, and showed once again why he's a real patriot who puts America's interests first. And that's exactly why they hate him. This hearing was a snapshot of today's political climate, where the left attacks you not for doing wrong, but for refusing to bend the knee. For refusing to compromise on American sovereignty, for standing up to foreign adversaries, and for defending the Constitution against radical subversion. That's what America First is all about. And if you're tired of watching the media and politicians twist the truth to push their globalist, anti-American agenda, this is the place for you. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with every patriot you know. Because the only way we win is by standing up together and speaking the truth, loud, clear, and unafraid. Until next time, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.